Oh no, upon the first lighting, the stove is smoking. The homeowner that just paid thousands of dollars must be like, what the F did you guys do? Smoking. Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. I'm not sure how I'm going to title this, but this is an interesting case study here about overcoming a smoke problem, a smoky fireplace or a smoky stove. I wanted to show you the house briefly. This woman seemed to have moved, it's all in Russian, so the sound's off. She seemed to have moved into a farm complex with several old dilapidated buildings. She probably bought a few acres. That one building was refurbished here with a new roof put on. She's going to move into this building. And you can see the chimney there is new as well, going up through the new tiled roof. So here's a picture of the inside, and take note of the tile stove. In Russia, they're big on brick. Tile stoves are more popular in other parts of Europe. This is a beautiful tile stove, and most times in Russia, the stove is built first, and the house is built around the stove. So she's doing the stove brand new at the time she's putting in cabinets and refurbishing her living space. The problem is the stove maker, I'll show you a little bit of, they don't show too much of how he makes it. The stove smokes tremendously, and the solution is quite simple. Most Americans would say, "Oh, we can't do that." Well, why not? I mean, I'll show you the solution. It makes perfect sense, and it fixes the problem. But first, a minute or two, if anybody's new on how this stove would work. The door to load the wood is here, and there's an ash door underneath, so there would be a grate. It'd be very similar to a Russian stove with brick, except tile. We'll do a whole video on tile stoves sometime, how each tile is tied together with wire and how it's mortared in. But for now, we're not going to get into that right now. He didn't show us the purpose of this person's channel is not a stove channel. So we don't see much of how he built it. But the firebox, of course, would be here. The wood is loaded in, and then there would be a ceiling on the firebox. The gases, after they escaped out of a hole in the back of the firebox, they would either wind back and forth like a snake and then go up the pipe here and connect to the chimney, like I showed you in the picture coming in, connect to the chimney very high up. So this whole 20 feet of the chimney is ice cold. This is an issue, and I'll show you how they overcome it. Also, the way this could be designed is, again, the wood is here. This whole bottom box is a firebox. The escape for gases would be, two brick-size hole in the back, and then the gases might be drawn over to the front in a channel, up, down, and then up and out. On this 5-foot run plus this run would be like a 9-foot run to get into the chimney. So again, gases in, pulled over, up, down, up and out. There's not a whole lot on the construction of the stove, guys. I'll show you what little is here. He is a specialist in tiled stoves. This is the firebox. Doesn't show how the tiles are wired together. It's a very tedious process. And we'll do, again, a whole video on it sometime. There's a couple good videos I found over the years. One last picture here of what the final stove looks like. And remember, that brick chimney is completely on the outside of that brick wall. At the right spot, up high, he has to punch through into that chimney. And upon the first lighting of the stove, you'll see there's going to be a problem here. And right now, I saw the closed captioning, the Russian to the English. And look at that tile. Look how nice that is. He's saying, don't only put in a few sticks for 2 weeks. Tile stoves need a longer curing period, or no big fires for 2 weeks. He's telling her small fires. So, the tiles could shift. You don't want anything to crack. You want the clay and the mortar, whatever he used, the clay to the sand to kind of dry properly. He said, small sticks here for 2 weeks, but then you'll see it starts to smoke. And again, he didn't build the chimney, this guy. He's just the stove maker. It's not his fault. You'll see that the problem with the chimney itself, there's no clean out door. There's no way to get into it. So this guy basically has to just break in to the chimney to create draft. And to the homeowner initially, he's like, well, this is a disaster. It really isn't. I'll show you right on Amazon the stove door to buy for this, the clean out door. This chimney, she's probably the person that runs this channel, like, this is a disaster, because the chimney was probably built 3 weeks ago. Whoever the contractor is refurbishing this house, her living quarters for this farm complex. Well, the dummy that built the chimney on the outside wall didn't put no way at all to access the chimney. I mean, how stupid are these people? Now, not for the stove. He needs to break into that chimney from the inside the house where he sees fit. So the person that built the chimney couldn't do that. So he's punched a hole in it, and he's creating draft. And when she starts the stove, see, they'll eventually put a nice little, I'll show you the door even to get, a nice little door where to start the stove, she might have to go outside, open a little door that will be over this hole, and put a little paper fire with sticks in the chimney. She may need to get draft started that way. I have a video a month or two back where I have to create draft and prime my chimney in my house for my wood stove. It smokes my house out if I don't prime my chimney first. You also need a way to clean it. So you have to somebody had to eventually punch a hole in it anyway. So he goes outside and he builds a fire in the bottom of the chimney, which then warms all the bricks up. The whole 25, 35 foot length of it gets warm, and then once it gets warm from top to bottom, then it starts to pull and it starts to suck. And now he's not going to have any problem. There's no problem with the stove design. It's amazing, all these stove videos, 95% of everything, well, 70% of an entire system, is the chimney, how well it pulls. All these videos, whether it be the Russian or whatever European counterflow, they'll show you the stove, but the chimney is way more important than the stove itself. So I'll show you, you just put a little door over this, mortar in a door, and you're good to go. And somebody might say, well, she has to go out and light it every single time. Well, it sounds bad, but not really, because if, Russian winter, once you light the stove up and you light it up twice a day, you might light it twice a day for 4 months in a row with no days off. So you don't have to do this more than once every 4 months. You prime it initially. Once everything starts moving and is warm, if you burn the stove twice a day for 2 hours, once in the morning, once at night, for 4 months in a row, then nothing is ever allowed to go cold. If nothing is ever allowed to go cold and the bricks maintain some degree of heat, when she gets up in the morning, 7:30, to put a new fire in, the chimney still might be holding enough heat to keep that flow in the right direction. So that smoke problem may only be initially once a year, or I don't know how long maybe she will allow it to go cold. But if she allows it to go cold, she'll have to go out and build a little fire in the bottom of that chimney. It's not a big deal. Here's some doors on Amazon, and I'm also showing you these because you can use these as your primary wood loading door. If you build a small brick stove or masonry heater yourself, you can use this as your primary door. But per the case study we're looking at, the high flame is a great door. I bought that a while back. I use it, in my tests out back. I'll show you the back of it. It's the second one in for $36. It's a heavy iron door for $36. No, there's no promo code, and I don't get nothing. The back, it's 7 3/4 inch. There's a nice lip, so that you saw the guy jackhammer into the side of the chimney. Well, eventually, her contractor would just clean it up, chisel it, make it a nice square at 7 3/4 inches, or a little larger, of course, and just mortar the door in with some type S cement or type N. This door, because it's much lower than where the fire comes in. Remember, it doesn't get real hot, even if she has to build a little fire in the bottom to prime the chimney. You don't need any sort of, I don't think you'd need any sort of insulation or gasket or anything like that. But, all that stuff is available if you wanted to use it. I'd just mortar in a door with type S cement, and it would look nice. It's a nice little lift-off latch handle, and also would be used when the chimney, the dummy that built that chimney, her contractor in Russia, this thing needs to be swept, whether it be creosote or fly ash is going to fall down the bottom. Some dummy built a chimney, just a box with no access to it, because thinking, well, the stove maker is going to need to break into it. Well, maybe he was thinking the stove maker is going to need to can break into it in 2 spots, where the pipe comes out of the stove, and also the stove maker will make the appropriate clean out door. Maybe that's what he was thinking. But anyway, it's 36 bucks, and this is a great door. And again, you want to build a small masonry. If you don't need a glass door, you don't need to see the fire. This is a great. You can load your primary wood through a door this size, as long as your pieces aren't too big. And even with big pieces, if you have a firebox that drops down, you just put in one piece at a time through this, 7 3/4 inches, 7 3. No piece of oak is bigger than that, and you just drop it down. So 36 bucks. Anybody listening to me, you're going to play around with, little masonry stove in your garage or whatever. And again, these aren't great for garages or work spaces because they take sometimes 2 hours to heat up, and then they throw heat for 8 to 10 hours. If you need quick heat, you want an iron stove. Back to the picture of the original stove. We'll continue talking about drafting issues. Again, guys, this is the door where you load the wood, and this is the ash door, or where the air comes in and flows up through the grate. Now, the stove maker probably told her, the homeowner, whoever's paying for all this, there's probably going to be a problem with the draft. He saw right off the bat what he was dealing with. A couple quick things about draft. If the design, again, firebox, if the design of this stove have the air and the gases and the flame comes up the hole in the back of the firebox and is drawn forward, like a lot of them are, and up, down, up, like a snake, the stove makers would have had to have known there's no way this thing's going to draft. There's just, when you pull it down like that, there's no way it's going to draft on lighting if everything's ice cold. And he doesn't have dampers in here or bypasses, it seems. If the stove design is firebox, hole in the back of the firebox, and simply horizontal channels that that allow the gases to snake and continue to move up, then often you don't need bypass dampers for those. You still could get, if the chimney's okay, you could get, if it snakes and continues to go up, so at the end there'd be like a 5-inch opening, then a ceiling, 5-inch opening, ceiling, like a slinky, snake back and forth, then the stove maker might have thought, and it seems like maybe that is the design, he might have thought it might draft okay because it seemed like he tried to make up for the problem here, saying, okay, it's gonna snake back and forth, and then almost not in desperation, but created this 6-7 foot run straight up. And he knows he has an ice cold chimney on the other side of this wall. Again, the chimney's on the outside. It would be much better if they would have constructed the box chimney inside the wall. But that's another issue. Because the chimney, chimney was built 3 or 4 weeks ago. The chimney's not part of this original farmhouse design. He's like, if I can get enough speed moving up here, it's going to dump out into the chimney. Then it only needs to go up another 10 to 12 feet to get out. It's almost like he tried to make up for it. If he knew what he was going to have to do, break into the bottom and have to draft the chimney from the bottom each time it's lit, I think he would have gone straight out into the chimney right here. He wouldn't have done this. And if anybody's saying, Matt, the extra pipe adds heat to the house, it doesn't. It's not that much. It's like he tried to create speed because he knew there'd be an issue. So based on, again, what he had to do, I bet he would have just taken it. You probably wouldn't even see the pipe. He would have designed it to go right out the back because this is ugly. It's like he's trying to make up for something. Nobody wants this. It doesn't provide that much extra heat in the house. These stove makers, they go out the back, so all you would see, look what she's spending on these cabinets here, and the person's spending a ton of money. So this looks like hell from her perspective. So they would have gone directly out the back. You wouldn't even see the pipe. And but again, she needs a clean outdoor anyway down there. Okay, we'll end with these two pictures. Again, this woman looks like a lot of land. There's several to many buildings. This is what she picked as her house. All the refurbishment going here. It's probably the original brick though, but new windows, of course, new tiled roof. The point is, her contractor should have stressed to her, that chimney that you see there, it's different color brick. The chimney's 3 weeks old probably. The old brick maybe 100 years old or more. That contractor should have stressed, this chimney needs to go in the house. And she has the room. If you remember, huge high ceilings. It doesn't look like a big place there, but the ceiling goes all the way up. She has the room. And see, she's in a world of hurt. if she has to keep coming outside to prime this chimney. Here's the issue. Again, these Russian stoves, most people that in Siberia or whatever, they'll burn them just 2 times a day if it's negative 35 degrees, 3 times a day. And when they wake up in the morning, everything is still warm enough, including their chimney, which usually goes up through the house, not on the outside. That's the problem. Everything's warm enough where you get up at 7 in the morning and you relight and you have good draft. You only have to prime once a year or so, because a lot of times these stoves are burned twice a day for 5, 6, 7 months straight with no time off. Nothing is allowed to go cold. So the priming only has to be done once. Her big issue is this. Okay, she primes it. Let's just say, again, this stove needs 2 weeks break-in. Once it's ready to burn the big fire, and let's say it's, 30 degrees outside Fahrenheit, just below freezing. She burns in the morning, burns at night. Again, most masonry heaters twice a day. She better hope that when she gets up in the morning at 7 a.m., that everything is still warm enough where she goes to relight the next day, hoping, she's going to relight every day for 90 days through the winter. She better hope that chimney stays warm enough so it doesn't cause a backup again. That's why if this chimney was built inside the house, no problem whatsoever. You prime it once from the bottom, have your clean out door, everything in the house, so it takes up, this chimney's not that big. The inside space is just like 1 brick by 1 brick. It's tiny. And if anybody's yelling, well, this chimney's way too small on the inside, that's the problem. No, it's not. Absolutely not. Talk about that in other videos. It's in fact, sometimes American chimneys are too wide. The too wide of a chimney, too large of a chimney causes most of the problem, but that's not the point of this video. It's not too small. That is not the issue, I assure you. So it 100% should have been built inside the house. She primes it once a year and has no issue at all with the stove ever. So with this, you hope it stays warm enough, but she might have a problem every day with this because the dummy built it outside the house. If it's negative 25 degrees, I don't see how these bricks stay warm enough where she's not going to have to prime it again the next morning. This is a big. The stove maker's like, well, I didn't build the chimney. This isn't my issue. I'm just here to build the stove. So what the stove maker maybe could have done, though, to balance the situation is let me go back to the image of the stove and I'll show you. Again, this might have to be done. Again, you put that high flame door over this, and you maybe you have to prime it once a year. Or maybe she's screwed and it has to be done every day because the chimney goes cold because it's out in negative 30 degrees overnight. I don't know how much the stove maker anticipated, which could be a daily problem, but probably did a bit because of this strange run here. What he should have done is, or maybe he designed it where he told her here, he said, look, if I have to come back and put this clean out door in where you can draft the chimney from the inside, I'll come back and do it. Maybe he did anticipate it. But the solution, the halfway solution would be a clean out door at the top, towards the top of the stove on the back side here. Even if she has to get on a little step with a little grate where you just probably only need to throw 3 or 4 pieces of newspaper in here. If there's a little door here that allows access to the stove where the stove meets the pipe. And then the 3 or 4 pieces of newspaper on fire, rush up this pipe and rush up the chimney, heat the bricks just enough where she has just enough draft to start the fire again in the morning, assuming everything went cold and the nighttime air is negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, that's no fun either. I have to prime mine every single, but I live in Pennsylvania. I only use my wood stove in cold snaps. I'm not using it now. It's almost February. I used it 10 days ago. We had the 5 or 6 day cold snap with wind chills below 0. It's not a big deal. I prime mine with newspaper. But if this is Russia, they're dealing with average lows, average over 3 months of -5, to -10, wherever she may be. To prime this every day is a nightmare. However, putting newspaper in a little door here and a little step ladder, once a day is just like 2 minutes. That's not the end of the world. Having to walk outside in -20 degrees And skivvies or whatever, that ain't no fun. Having to do it from the bottom of the chimney every single time. There's no other option. So, assuming how he, built this stove. So, of course, you can see one last thing from this picture. Easily, that chimney could have been constructed inside the house. So you'd have the chimney and she has, look at the cabinet, and she bought this. This person has some money. Look at the cabinets and the redoing all these buildings on this farm complex. You'd simply make the chimney, wouldn't be the skinny little thing. Then you'd make it, maybe the pipe would be skinny. You'd make it wider and decorative. So it would be wide, it would get smaller. It would be like a design. It would take some of the, that's not the biggest house. It would take up some of the living space, but it's better. You put that chimney in the house, you prime it once a year. That's it. And this is her primary heat here. So, who cares if you want to take up a little living space, you want to run outside in your underwear at negative 25 degrees every day. So the stove maker, he should have thought about some of these things too. Again, I'm not just, saying this. You saw the first, he lit it up and smoke started to pour out. So this is a major problem. And it's not going to be like one of those kitchen nightmare shows with Gordon Ramsay. We're going to be able to follow up with her to see what happened. Actually, I'll go back to the YouTube channel. You never know. Maybe I can find out some information. Thanks, guys.